Hello, World Wide Web. Welcome to Hangin' With. I'm GW Pomichter. Thanks for tuning in and logging on. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't, I'll thank you later. Go subscribe. We'll really appreciate it. We are hanging out at the I Love Books multi-genre book signing hosted by the Florida Writers Association, and we are hanging with author of historical fiction, Bill Collins, and we are going to be talking about Behind the Golden Mask.
Right.
Is a book, and if for those of you who are familiar with the iconic face, this is a book that centers around Tutankhamun, and you have learned some really interesting things along the way writing this book.
Well, it's a fascinating story. I mean, everybody knows the story of King Tut. What's interesting is I saw a television program last year that said the face on the mask of King Tut was really not his face.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but it was the face of his mother, because he died so young. He became pharaoh at 9 and then died 10 years later at 19. And they weren't ready. The pyramid wasn't ready. The tomb wasn't ready. And so they borrowed the mask of his mother from her funeral and added it to his mask.
Wow.
Which is part
I
of
wonder,
the mask.
out there on the World Wide Web, how many of you knew that? Leave a comment down below. I love the cover art.
Yeah,
this is
great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Who's your cover designer?
Chris Holmes in
Chris
Daytona.
Holmes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about its historical fiction.
Historical fiction.
So tell us a little bit about the premise of the book.
Well, historical fiction sounds like a contradiction in terms. It's either history or it isn't. But it's based on what was really discovered last year when they did all of the CAT scans and x-rays of Tut's mummy.
Okay.
And they discovered that he had not been murdered as they had thought, but had died some kind of a natural death, which broke his bones and his ribs and all this kind of stuff. And then I thought it was interesting that they buried 4 chariots in his tomb, because he loved to ride chariots. And the scholars now agree that that's perhaps what did him in, that he fell off his chariot. There were also 23 canes in his tomb, and that's an interesting thing in itself.
For a 19-year-old
pharaoh,
yeah.
So he had a club foot, and he had this terrible handicap, and probably felt the freest and the happiest when he was riding his chariot, which I thought was really cool.
Well, chariot riding in that era would have been a fairly athletic exercise.
Very athletic.
And for a 19-year-old pharaoh with a club foot, you're right, that would break a few bones from time to time.
Absolutely, especially if it rolled over.
Yeah.
But I think he was well loved by everybody. In my book, I use Horemheb as the main character, who goes on to become the mentor of the young king. And the sad thing is, when Horemheb leaves town, all those in the court who wanted to do him in must have taken advantage and planned somehow that the chariot accident occurred, and goodbye Tut. And of course, Horemheb is the one who succeeds and carries out a lot of what King Tut would have done. So I really enjoy Egyptology. This is my 6th book on Egypt.
Okay.
I finished one, Murder by the Gods, about the Scorpion King's grandson, Aha, which I thought was a cool name, who died by being trampled to death by hippopotamus.
That does not sound like a fun way to go, folks. It really doesn't. How are readers responding?
Oh, Murder by the Gods has done very well, because I think it's a fun story. You learn a lot about Egyptian culture. It wasn't called Egypt in the first dynasty. It was just the sacred land. And Aha was a great character. And
Egypt
so I enjoyed
has
working.
been a center for fiction stories, nonfiction. It's been a fascinating center of popular imagination for a very long time now. And to write a fiction story or to speculate.
Right.
Because more than fiction, it sounds like what you've done is sort of said, well, here's what we know, here's what might have happened.
That's right. It's like the assassination of Lincoln. We know some of the events, but you have to tie them together to find out.
It's what happened in your mind, but there's nothing to say that that's not what happened.
That's exactly
It just
right.
sort of could have been.
Well, I think it happened because I wrote it.
That's right. I always say the author's favorite question is what if.
That's right.
Sometimes one of our favorite speculations is, well, here's what you know. What if you tie it together like that.
That's right, yeah.
And that can be a lot of fun, and it sounds like it is.
It is.
What was the most interesting thing that you learned in researching for your books?
Well,
and it's something that our readers out there, like I said, Egyptology is a fascinating subject and a pop culture subject. Everybody loves it. What's something they don't know?
Well, we know that they had bad teeth because they ate bread that was filled in with sand. I mean, sand is blowing all over Egypt. And who would have thought that everybody would have had their teeth ground down because of all that sand? I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting.
It was never called Egypt. It was the Greeks who called it Egypt. For them, it was the Black Land because the Nile overflows, makes the dirt really nice and black.
Okay.
And that's the name of the country. But there is so much to learn, and we're still learning. My newest book coming out this fall is based on a tomb that was opened last year outside of Cairo. An Egyptian physician was buried with all of his tools and his cat. And I said, this would make a great story, you know, have the physician be the main character and have his cat help him solve the murder. So that's what I'm doing.
Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be fantastic. We'd love to kind of get into your head and let your readers know who you are. The subject is always interesting, but the writer's even more interesting. We live in a fan-driven world, so we want to ask you a few things. Writers write at all hours of the day and night. You wake up and you write whenever the muse speaks to you. Favorite midnight snack?
Pizza.
Pizza.
Yep.
If you're gonna write about Egypt, get yourself some Italian food.
That's right.
Have you been to Egypt?
I have.
Have you?
Yeah. It's
and
fascinating.
What did you think?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I had been fortunate enough to be stationed in the Sinai Peninsula.
Oh, wow.
And we got to do some trips over to Cairo.
Yeah.
And to the Giza Plateau and do
right.
the tourist thing.
Yeah.
And what an amazing and a place that takes their history seriously now. They really are serious about preserving the history from Egypt.
That's right. Well, I was disappointed when I went to the Cairo Museum because I had seen the Tut exhibit traveling through the United States. Mm-hmm. Beautiful blue velvet all around the, you know. And you go to the Cairo Museum and the roof is leaking and it's dripping down on the glass cases. They're not, you know, they need somebody to really pay, I guess, to preserve them.
I guess that's what it is, because they do, when you go out to the dig sites and places where they'll let you go and things, they're taking extra care to try to preserve what's left, but at the same time, it's very costly.
Yeah.
And it's a history that's every day, it's thousands of years old and getting older every day.
That's right.
So it's difficult to do. Who is your favorite historical king or queen?
Hatshepsut, the queen.
Hatshepsut.
Yeah, she was the most powerful woman. Yeah, she was Tutmos III's aunt, but she wore a fake beard and pressed her breast down. She wanted to look like a man because she ruled with an iron hand, but she was a great character.
That's fantastic. That is awesome. And you said you have another book on another historical fiction on Egyptology coming out.
In December? No, in November. Murder in Pharaoh's House.
Murder in Pharaoh's House. Not to give any spoilers, anything we can do to tease them out there? What's coming?
Well, if they like cats, if they like romance and murder mystery, just read the book.
There you go. There you go. Cats, romance, murder mystery. It's like a Facebook meme. So get out there and get it. Murder in Pharaoh's House. In the meantime, get caught up Behind the Mask. We're going to put links down to the other books down here in the description so you can find all this stuff. Look for William Collins and Behind the Mask, and then next fall, Murder in Pharaoh's House. Okay, we're getting the flashback there, so we're going to wrap things up by thanking Something Unique Magazine, Books, Chocolate, and Wine, the Florida Book News, Authors for Authors, Wordfire Press, our new friends here at the Florida Writers Association. Thank you, Bill Collins, for hanging with us.
Thank you.
And get out there and find Behind the Mask. I'm GW Pomichter. We are hanging at the I Love Books multi-genre book signing hosted by the Florida Writers Association, hanging with Bill Collins. Remember, subscribe, log on, tune in, see who we're hanging with next.